At this point, I thought it would be really important to do a video on Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. I personally played it on the PS2. I'm going to tentatively declare that it is one of my favourite games of all time. I thought the graphics for the time were amazing, and one of the things that I loved about the game was that it was set in the Middle East. The Middle East is a part of the world that's very, very close to my heart because half of my family actually hail from there, and I spent many a wonderful summer packed off to my grandma's house, some of the best times of my life. So yeah, the game has a big punch of that Middle Eastern sauce, and I'm not talking about hummus. To sum up the premise, the prince finds a dagger, the dagger of time, and the enemy captures an hourglass containing the sands of time, and the hourglass gets spilled out everywhere, and it transforms all of the people of Azad into monsters, which the prince has to defeat as he goes through the game. It is thought that hourglasses existed in Roman times and had various functions, one of which was to time political speeches. The hourglass is supposed to symbolize human life and mortality, representing time, the cycle of life and death, and the belief in the eternity of the soul. Whenever I use an hourglass, I actually panic. It's almost like a realistic representation of your life vanishing away before your eyes. So yeah, when the sound runs out, it's usually game over. It is a puzzle and combat platformer. Platform games emerged in the 1980s with games like Donkey Kong, Sonic, and Super Mario. Best moves, the Prince of Persia can do the wall run, where he basically can traverse a sticky situation by running along the wall. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a wall and wanted to do the wall run. It's a great move, and everybody should be able to do it, in my opinion, not just the Prince of Persia. It turns out that the Prince of Persia's kind of acrobatic moves were very much inspired by Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and The Matrix. When I read that, I was like, of course they were. How was that completely lost on me? But the best thing that the Prince of Persia was able to do was rewind time using his dagger. So you'd be in the middle of this fight with the monsters and you'd make a really bad move and you'd think it was all over, but it wouldn't be, because you have the dagger and you have the power to rewind that bad move to a few seconds before it happened, and you have that little bit of life left, so you can perform a different move to kill the monster or at least injure him badly. And I absolutely loved the stress and the tension release when you come out of this epic battle sequence and you'd used all of your time rewind capability and you'd only just made it, and you just burst into a part of the temple that was nice and calm compared to the battle sequence that you'd just gone through, and you drink this water from a fountain and it would save the game. What a rush! What a rush! Got me thinking that the rewind time capability is possibly the most deadly and powerful gaming ability in the whole of gaming history. You are essentially in control of the most powerful and unstoppable thing in the universe, and that is time. But it got me thinking, what is the difference between a knife and a dagger? So from side on, daggers are always symmetrical, and both sharp edges go down to a point at the top, which makes sense for its purpose because it's there to stab people. Whereas a knife usually has a sharpened edge and is used more for cutting. So to summarize, a dagger is a form of knife, and a knife can be a dagger if it has the right characteristics. Other famous daggers include the basilard, the misericord, the stiletto, and the bollock. So apparently the game design was influenced by a really nice game called Eco, which I played on the PS2 briefly. God, Eco was such a melancholy game. It was about a boy who was born with horns, and the village he was born into saw it as a bad omen, so they locked him away in order to be sacrificed. He teams up with this girl who is kind of like this ghostly white shape, and she follows him around the game, and they explore the castles together and do all of the puzzles. It's a really quite beautiful and haunting game with these incredibly intricate illustrations of castles and stuff, all pen and ink and deep shadows. I actually seem to recall that they use ink as kind of a theme in eco, but I can't really remember. To be honest, I found the puzzles so difficult that I eventually gave up on it. So Prince of Persia obviously had these similar castlescape backgrounds where you're kind of like traversing these Iranian temples. One really cool move was that if he sees a wooden pole hanging off the wall, he can just kind of swing from one pole to the other, and it had I remember a really nice momentum as you went from pole to pole to pole and eventually jumped onto the ledge. Much like Eco, Prince of Persia also had a girl in it that followed him around, a young princess named Farah, and she was known for opening doors. Yeah, she was just always there to open doors for him, you know. But I was thinking, surely the gentlemanly thing for Prince of Persia to have done would be to open the doors for Farah. Now I realise what an interesting and subversive modern subtext the game actually had. As I remember, it had this metal soundtrack with these kind of Arabian flourishes, especially in the game sequence where it would just be this metal kind of banger. Yeah, I really enjoyed the soundtrack for the game. So when I looked it up, it turned out that the guy who produced the soundtrack was a guy called Stuart Chatwood, who was in a Canadian band called the Tea Party, and they actually make music that's kind of like a fusion of Eastern and Western influences combined with metal, which they hilariously call Moroccan roll. Ha ha ha. It's actually quite funny. So the tallest sandcastle in the world is 57 feet 11 inches, and it was built by a kind of project group in Germany. The sand was imported from the Netherlands because apparently that sand was easier to work with than native sand. So I was reading another strange fact actually, that any material that is a certain size of grain technically qualifies as sand. So sugar and salt are sand.